What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Do we have a question for today?
A question. We do have a question, and it was inspired by Rhonda. And the question was, when you look back in your early days of high school and you thought, this is what I want to do if I grow up, the question is, are you doing it?
Ooh, that was a long one. Can you say it again?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we're going to get one worded on this. People are going to be like, yes, no, sort of.
Exactly.
So yeah, are you doing what you thought you would be doing as a career, or is it in the ballpark? So
absolutely not for me.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of, if you want to make it longer, you could say, what is it that you wanted to do when you were just in your early high school years? What was the dream for when you grew up?
There you go. Too much schooling required. The laziness factor. Beautiful. So yeah, and actually let us do a part B of that question, which is, what did you want to do if you grew up?
Right. Yeah, I had no clue in high
That's a
school.
gooder question.
I know. I wanted to be Mrs. John Bon Jovi.
Oh, good for you.
That was the plan. Yeah.
And how'd that go for you?
It's not working. Time's not up yet, but
That's true.
Not there yet.
This is true. Well, let's get started.
Shall we get started? Welcome everyone. Today is, we're very high tech, July 24th, 2024. And if you're keeping tabs at home, today is 24/7 day. So get busy, get going, work hard, do that stuff 24/7.
Who needs Mike Kerr?
I know, Mike who?
We got you.
So anyway, we want to say welcome to Every Other Wednesday, where we get together every other Wednesday and chat about culture, corporate organizational culture issues in fun and wacky and creative ways. Two of our normal guests, or not our guests, our permanent hosts.
Plus, I wouldn't call them normal.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough too.
Regular.
The other guys aren't here, Mike Kerr and Richard Haddon, but two of us are. And Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
I would love to. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Every Other Wednesday. My name is Jeff Tobe, and I am Coloring Outside the Lines. I am a professional speaker and author, all in the area of customer experience. Sanjay.
My name is Sanjay Nath. I'm based just outside of Toronto in Canada. I'm a speaker and author as well, focusing on performance and leadership, and best known by an concept called the 10-80-10 principle, which is about a strength-based approach to leadership. So with that said, we are, normally you'd say you're very fortunate to have a guest, but it's just hard for me to lie. So what I'll do is I'll just say Rhonda's here, and I will read her bio and add on some editorial comments. Insightful, humorous, entertaining, even contagious, like COVID.
Yeah.
Words that are often used to describe Rhonda Scharf, a speaker with the uncanny ability to look at the normal and see something quite different. Rhonda will share some things that she has learned to help you to thrive in your work environment, emerging at the end of the day with a smile and a sense of accomplishment. Audiences far and wide sing her praises for her relevant and useful tips on administration, communication, and workplace effectiveness. Rhonda's an author, speaker, trainer, and a grandmother. She has earned her Certified Speaking Professional, is a member of the Canadian Speaking Hall of Fame, and is one of only 35 speakers worldwide who has earned their Global Speaking Fellow, which truly means she has an international business. And she's also been awarded the Spirit of Caps Award. She's actually the first speaker in the entire world to earn all 4 distinctions. Her peers consider Rhonda as a leader in the speaking industry. Her natural warmth and sincerity are balanced by a healthy sense of the absurd, a combination that is useful in any situation. A little known fact about Rhonda: she started her professional speaking career at the age of 2. That is when her mother would pay her 25 cents to be quiet for 5 minutes. With that said, I've known, it's kind of scary to say it, but I've known Rhonda for pushing 25 years now. And I will say, because this is not being recorded, I can say it, she is an absolute professional. She is very good at what she does. She is a quality individual. And most importantly, she has enough sass to keep up with Every Other Wednesday. And I want to clarify, I said class, not sass. Yeah. Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm going to totally edit out that soundbite and play it every morning.
Wait, first of all, Sanjay, we are being recorded. Right.
I got it on record.
I've been staring at your screen, Rhonda, for the last couple of minutes. I cannot figure out what that word is over your shoulder. So.
It says Admin's Rock.
Admin's Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know
All
it's
I
not
got was
quite
the
there.
Men's Rock.
Yeah, Admin's
Men's
Rock.
Rock. I thought it was a new place. So I was Googling it to see where it is. I
Would
want
you-
to just also say before you, I know you want to say something, Sanjay. 3 Canadians today. Even though I may not be there, absolutely. First time in a long time.
So actually, Jeff beautifully and segued it lovely. Admin's Rock, which is, I want to hear first of all a little bit about your journey, and then we'll kind of get into more of how that all plays into culture and stuff. But so you are a speaker, very well established. You've been doing this for like at least 6 or 7 months, and but you actually have a very specific focus, and that is on admins.
Yeah.
But you've been doing this for 30 years. So how did you get to being that niche? Like, where did you start? Give us the journey.
So the question that we started at the beginning with is, what did you want to do when you grew up? And I, as much as I joke about being Mrs. John Bon Jovi, I actually wanted to be a school teacher. But in the 80s, which I realized some people weren't born yet, but I was, and I was in high school, it was harder to get into teachers college than it was to get into medical school. And I don't know how you guys enjoyed high school, but I had a blast, which meant I did not have the marks to go to teachers college. So I'm sort of in my final year of high school going, oh crap, what am I going to do? And you grab something quickly because the last thing you want to do is live at home forever. And I went to college and I became a nurse. And I realized that was not going to be for me. I jokingly say I don't have any compassion. And when I'm in front of my admin audiences or my HR audiences, I say, where do you go when you have no compassion? You go to helping people. So I left healthcare and I started working in an office. And I was 19 years old and I got paid to talk on the phone all day. And it was a beautiful thing. And I worked for a national real estate company, and it was the 80s where you could jump job to job to job, and people didn't look like you had ADD for that. They thought, oh, this girl's got, she's got drive. So I moved around the company, ended up being executive assistant to one of the senior VPs. So I fell into admin job after admin job after admin job. Then computers came along. I instinctively understood them. So before the company even had a help desk, I would get a couple hundred calls a day that would say, help me, Rhonda. And I go, huh. And I would help them. And so the company said, we need Rhonda to be help desk. And that's how I fell into training. It was really just, I was the help desk. Then I had to go out and train everybody how to use DOS and WordPerfect. And I did all that with all the admins of the company. And it just, it grew internally. And then in 1993, I started on the right track. So it's been a while.
So by the way, there's been a request for you to sing it.
Yeah.
Chat box.
No, if I sang it, the podcast be over that fast.
Perfect. Okay, so
So
then,
wait.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, give me a chance here. So wait, 1993 you started, did you say? Okay.
Yeah. On my own. I was corporate trainer before that, right?
Right.
And 93, I started on the right track. Yeah.
Right. So, Sanjay, you had a follow-up question. Go ahead. Mine is completely
now,
different.
now I forgot what it was.
Okay.
So again, though, when you started, you weren't specifically targeting admins, but you kind of evolved into that. So
no, I really was. Yeah, I
Oh,
really
you-
was. I was teaching admins how to use computers. I was
Okay.
teaching them what to do with the C prompt, what to do with WordPerfect, all that sort of stuff. So I've pretty much always been in this space.
Nice. Okay.
All right. So the show is about corporate culture, obviously, and I want to tie it together right away. When we're talking about culture or even having strategic meetings, why should we include the admins?
Why would
And
you
I don't mean that to be, that sounded really
no, but
derogatory, but why?
so this is one of my pet peeves is when the admin we say admin in Canada and admin in the States. So I'm going to go back and forth, and it's just a different emphasis, right? And so when your admin isn't in your meeting, you are missing a whole ridiculously good perspective and organization. I mean, what ends up, you have to then go back and say, okay, make sure you do this and do this and do this. When in reality, they'd be sitting there in the meeting going, okay, you can't do this because you have this. Let me tell you right now, this works, or here's the background on that. They are the organizer. They are the administrative expert in the company. Why would they not be sitting in the meetings? It just saves so much follow-up time and so much just even time for, I'll say the executive, but whoever it is, their admin knows their life. They can make their life easier. So not having them in the meeting is like making a meal that you've never made before and you don't have the recipe in front of you. Like you don't know what you're doing. And
It's
so you need your admin there.
And
so true. As Sanjay knows, I've worked a lot with small rural hospitals, and I've gotten to the hospital, and the admin was sick that day, and the CEO said to me, "We can't have the meeting." I said, "Well, yeah, no, we can go ahead with it." He said, "I have no clue about my life unless she's here, so I get it."
Yeah.
And there's also something to be said too for a good admin person, the institutional knowledge that comes with them, because sometimes they're there longer than the executive or the C-suite, and they provide that continuity and that historical reference, right? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, in reality, that's often the case. You know, your senior leadership in your organization or even your mid-level leadership moves around, they change, and yet you've likely got somebody who's been there for a long time. And even if they haven't, their institutional knowledge is so much broader than what the leadership has. Like let's say you're CFO, you understand everything financial, right? That's your job. But the admin to the CFO understands how the finances impact all the other departments, like who to talk to, what needs to be done, all of that sort of stuff. So they're really the, the circus tamer of the whole thing. And they have a much larger perspective of what needs to be done. It's not as easy to say, sure, I can be in New York tomorrow morning. Not necessarily, right? So we need the person who does all that coordinating to really be in that meeting.
You have a huge fan in Carol. Carol is our most regular attendee, and this is basically what she did for a living in the professional world. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. Agree that when you're having, from an organizational culture standpoint, if you don't have the buy-in from the admins, life becomes very difficult. And we know often they are the gatekeepers. They're the gatekeepers to try to keep the salespeople out of the executive suite, but just as much so, they are the gatekeepers to ideas, right? They can plant a bug. I remember I got a ridiculously large contract because an article had been written about me in a paper, so that's how long ago it was, and the admin read it, and she called me and said, "I think you need to talk to my boss. We're doing this thing, want to do a retreat, da 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 da." And I said, "Okay, you want to talk now?" She goes, "Well, I haven't even talked to him yet. I'll plant the idea in his head. He'll call you." And so this guy called me, and I did a day long with their 40 VPs, and it led to something like 15 years of business that not only that I did, but spun out time and time again. It was because one admin read something about me, had a call with me, it clicked, and she planted the bug in his ear, which, unleashed the terror. So my question is this, is how do you get their buy-in? How do you, we're talking about organizational culture and we need their buy-in, but what happens if they don't want to play? Or what are some of the things we could be doing or that you've seen or that you suggest that get the admin, and we're using admin, but I want to go generically and say that it really can be any frontline staff, right? It could be servers in a restaurant, it could be drivers in a trucking organization. Then they all serve different roles, but it is a very frontline kind of position. And again, I think admins are a little more unique because they see the front and the back. They're kind of the connector. But what are some of the ways we can engage?
Yeah, so I say that admins are really the biggest influencers in any organization. If something is going to tank, it's because you haven't sold it to the admin team, and they can destroy anything in a second. If something is going to succeed, it's because they are behind it. So we use the word gatekeeper, you're right, for salespeople and appointments. But if you really want ideas to flow, you've got to sell them to the admin team. And because seriously, like they can take it out or they can make it succeed. They are the implementers. They are the conduits between management and the front line or the customer base. And so they are really the ones that need to be on board. They need to believe what you're saying, whether it's culture or whatever you're having to do. So, don't force it down their throat. Look at them as a strategic partner. Work with them because they're your best ally in an organization.
Okay, how? What are some of the ways we can, or we're going to do a do's and taboos kind of list. What are some of the things you would highly recommend or you've seen that have worked in them well in the past, and other things avoid? Because, we have I'll go very 80s reference. We have Secretary's Day. What else do we need? Right?
Yeah, it's called Administrative Professionals Day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Not
it's
enough.
and that is the world's largest workplace observance, right? But not all administrative professionals want to be observed on a day. Like it's kind of becoming a bit passé, if you will. People don't want it necessarily. But first of all, you want to ask their opinion. Don't tell them what you think they want. Sort of, if you're in a lifelong partnership, you don't tell your partner what you want. You let them think it's their idea, right? And so you get, it's very true.
Write that down.
But so with the admins, because they really are, as Jill says, the implementers, or they're the conduit between the executives and everybody else, they are in that middle role. You want to ask them what they see, what they feel, what will work. Their opinion really does matter. They are on both sides of that coin. So that's definitely the do's. Ask them. And don't just ask them because I said so. Actually listen to what they said as well. And their advice is very solid. I mean, obviously you're going to get the outliers of, Sanjay's 10% of the people that are really just thinking about themselves, but the 80% are really thinking about everybody. Ask their opinion, as Anne-Marie says, and be vulnerable. You don't see it from their perspective, right? So then get them involved as well. So if you're going to be implementing someone, your biggest implementer is your admin. So get them involved. And I don't mean delegate. I mean, get them doing something that will be good for them, their profile, what they're interested in doing. Maybe some of them want to be, front and center, and some don't. They like to be invisible in the background, but get them involved. Ask them, if you were doing this, because they practically are, what would you do? So like for Sanjay's example, when the admin called him up from the article from the newspaper, that's where all my business comes from. It comes from the admins directly. So you want to make sure that you are connecting with them, right? You're not speaking to any, it wouldn't be admins, it'd be just anybody in any organization. Don't speak down to them. Don't be disrespectful. As we had in the comments, they are sadly underpaid for all that they do. Make sure they feel valued and valuable. And they'll be on your team. My favorite quote that I use in my talks are Maya Angelou quote, people will never forget how you made them feel. And if you think about when we are working with people, there's some people that the relationship is so good that we would run into oncoming traffic just because they asked us. We knew they wouldn't ask us if it wasn't safe, right? We just do it because. And then there's other people, you'll be at Costco and you'll have $300 worth of groceries and you see them on the other lane and you're going to go, I gotta go. And you walk away from, your $300 worth of groceries at Costco, which is a big commitment, right? So you want to make sure that you and the admins that you work with, or HR or frontline or whatever, really have that solid relationship, and they will be there for you. They will run into traffic for you, but you've got to earn it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry, let me comment there. One of the things that you said, and this is a theme that's come up time and time again in past episodes, is about communicating in the currency that's important to the person, not the currency that's important to you. Like you said, some want the recognition, some don't.
Right.
And so, or let me rephrase that. Some want public recognition and some don't. Everyone wants your recognition, but they want it in the currency in which they want. Yeah, as Carol was mentioning in the chat box, it's love languages, right?
Yep.
And if you look at all those personality indicators, colors and true colors and Myers-Briggs and DISC and that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to help people understand what is your currency. So we all want to be, a sense of belonging and part of a team, and we all want those things, but the form in which we want them will change. And it's our job as a leader or as a conduit or as a connector to speak in the currency in which they want to hear.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
My nephew is the CEO of a very large financial services company. And knowing that you were going to be our guest, I saw him last night and we were talking about it, about the admin part. He said, they are actually our greatest pool for management. He said, because none of them come into the job thinking they want to be a manager. He said, but and they always say no when we say you should think about taking this management job, until we tell them that they know the business better than any manager in the entire organization. And he said that we have not had to go outside the company to hire managers as much as we have our admins. So I think that's
Yeah.
really interesting that they are the glue, and their knowledge. So let me ask you, how has hybrid or remote work affected frontline admin staff, or has it?
Well, yeah, it absolutely has, but in an interesting way. So what was interesting is prior to the pandemic, I don't like to use that C word, but prior to the pandemic, every admin that wanted to work remote, the answer was always no, this place wouldn't run without you. We need you here all the time, which is a joke because in some organizations, the executive team was never in the office anyway. So what difference does it make, if Jeff, if you're sitting in New York and your admin is sitting in LA, you're not in the same spot. Like, who cares if she's in LA in the office or at home? So obviously during the pandemic, they figured out very quickly that admins could work from home. The way that it's affecting now is the internal relationships with everybody else. And so usually with whoever they're supporting, let's say it's a person or a board of directors or a department or something like that, the pandemic hasn't really had too much impact there. They still have, we jump on Teams, we jump on, chat, and we do all that sort of stuff. It's been pretty good, especially with organizations where people are on the move a lot, like where they're traveling and stuff like that. Where it has had an impact is the relationships outside of that. So back to your comment, Jeff, about from your nephew, how so many of the internal managers come from the admin staff because they know everything. They don't know everything anymore. So they're losing that connection. They're losing that understanding of how things work because maybe they're in the office 2 or 3 days a week, but everybody's not there the same days. So you can go months without seeing somebody in HR or seeing somebody in accounting, and you just don't develop the same sort of relationships. And that's really where admins excel, is knowing who and when and how to get things done. And working remotely, that's really impacted their culture of their efficiency levels. Now they may plow through way more paper and emails and meetings and all that sort of stuff than they've ever done before, but their ability to get things done in a pinch or their ability to know who to call is what has suffered.
Yeah, and imagine that the water cooler conversation doesn't exist anymore. And for those of you who are really young, it's more of a metaphor nowadays. But that they don't have that kind of inside conversation anymore.
But with
Yeah.
that said, depending on who it is, you go 2 and 3 months without seeing it, could be a really good thing.
Sometimes, yeah. But even like as Carol says in the chat about how to fix the copy machine. I mean, we joke. I mean, we've been joking about the copy machine since the 1980s, but it still exists. It's stuck, and who do they go to? They go to the admin, right? And then as you're standing there looking like an idiot for 2 seconds while the admin just goes boom, done, you are creating that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not there anymore.
So then what's the answer? What's the magical fix?
There isn't one. We have to learn. I don't know what it is right now, is really it's not about going back, and it's just about developing the new way to connect. I mean, when I was a teen, a long time ago, I was a teenage girl who was on the phone all the time. I lived in a rural community, right? I didn't walk down the street to visit with my friends. So I'd get home from school and I'd spend, the entire evening on the phone. And of course,
How long was your telephone cord?
oh, really long. Oh, I could go around the stairs and the whole thing, like absolutely, right? And my mom used to get really frustrated with me. And of course, my grandparents say, you're going to grow a thing out of your ear, right? And I'm like, we developed a new way to communicate, to create relationship, whereas my grandparents would have done the pen pal thing, right? So they didn't understand talking on the phone. Of course, then we went from the phone to the cell phone to text. And now I have full conversations with people that I never talked to and would say that it's really good. So we're just in that space right now to figure out what replaces standing at the photocopier or in the elevator or killing time before a meeting. But we will, the same way the telephone did, the same way text did, the same way email did. We just need to figure it out.
Again, this is something, because this is very much related to the whole organizational culture piece, right?
Absolutely.
Which is, how do we connect? And we've said this, you always have a culture, no matter what. By default, a culture will exist. Now, sometimes you luck out and you have enough people on the team that are influential enough that people go, oh, this is a great culture. But sometimes you get that one toxic personality and they suck the life out of everyone.
Yeah.
One of the analogies I've often tried to explain this with is if you have a company and you're running it in Chicago and there's 50 people in the office, they show up every day, you have this great culture, yay, yay, yay. And you expand, and all of a sudden now you have 50 people in the LA office and 50 people in the Chicago office. You're going to have two subcultures, but you still have an overall culture for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you don't see each other every day, and sometimes maybe you get together once or twice a year, and maybe you miss that person, and you can go 2 or 3 years without seeing someone in the organization, you still have a culture, and there are still touch points and connections that you're trying to make. And unless you make a conscious effort to do that, you will have the default culture. And if you're lucky and the stars align, your default culture might be okay. Maybe it's tolerable, maybe it's okay, maybe it's even good. But more often than not, by probability, it's going to be mediocre to bad to suck. And so we have to look to make those touch points. And those touch points might be in the form of a pen pal or an email or hey, we're inviting you to a Zoom where we sip wine and eat cheese, or anything in between. But yeah, we want to constantly have those connections. And one of the things I'm hearing from you is whenever you're doing those, make sure as best you can, you get the buy-in from the admin.
And include them. Like, so for instance, like it's pretty standard for the senior executive team to have their annual offsite, right? They go to some really awesome place. They stay in a really nice hotel. They do, but the admin organizes it all, but doesn't go. I mean, she's part of that culture, right? Or I'll default to she, but they're part of that culture. And if by not including them, what message are you sending? And then what message are they potentially sharing with all the other people back at work? Oh, here we are in the office today, where all the bigwigs are in the spa in Vegas, or and it could be hurting the culture.
For sure. I worked with an organization not too long ago where the admin was there because and it was a woman. She was doing everything from the promotional product stuff that she was putting at each table and telling them their agenda. But she sat in the back of the room completely separate from everybody else. I'm thinking, there's ideas here. Everybody brings something to the table, right? So, Rhonda, if you imagine for a minute, you've got a 19-year-old just graduated or 21-year-old, however old it is, and they go into admin at a company or an organization. What are the 3 pieces of advice you would give that person, knowing what you know now?
Oh gosh. Okay. Not prepped for that
Okay,
question.
2.
No. I'll give that 3.
No, just
Number
one, and then I'll ask the same question.
Yeah. Never stop learning. You got your job today, but the admin job is one of the jobs that moves faster than just look at the tech piece of that. And they're always not only expected to use it, they're expected to teach everybody else how to do it too. So never get too comfortable in your seat. Always keep learning. The second piece of advice would be to know everybody. Be the friendliest person you know. If that's not your personality type, just do it at work and then go home and crash and don't talk to anybody. But be really easy to work with and know everybody. And number 3 is don't shoot yourself in the foot. So many times we get admins who suffer from imposter syndrome, or like you were talking about your nephew, they don't think they can do things and they hold themselves back professionally when there's no need to do that. We've all heard and know about the glass ceiling, but if you're ever given the opportunity to go beyond it, because it does exist in some, then do not talk yourself out of it. Run right through it.
Yeah, I think if I can add number 4, do not accept less than. Right?
Yeah.
I think that came to mind as well. Thank you. I
In,
put you on
in,
the spot, but thanks.
in the 30 years, I'm sort of curious. I would assume 30 years ago, it was, 90+% women, and that ratio has probably changed. What is it these days?
We're still 90 plus, but it is definitely changing. What is interesting and still somewhat depressing is the men that are coming into the profession start and hire much faster. So you'll find that if there is a male in the and I'm generalizing, but if there is a male in the organization, he is likely supporting someone with a C in front of their title. So they are moving faster It's unfortunate, but it is still predominantly female. We are getting younger people in the profession now, which is good. For a while, it was stagnant for a bit, and people weren't coming into it, but now they're circling back, recognizing that they actually like getting stuff like this done. It's a very, very satisfying job. You never do the same thing twice, so it makes you feel really challenged all the time.
I'm just hazarding a guess here, but just from my experience, and much more limited than yours, is that there's a ridiculous longevity. Admins really legitimately love what they do, and they generally stick around longer.
They really do. Yeah, so I play the game, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? And then I go, how long have you been in min, not just necessarily here, but in any organization? And let's say I've got 50 admins in the room that I'm doing the workshop or the speech in, I will have at least one of them who's got 40 plus years. Like, it's really longevity, which is nice. That's really what they're called to do.
Which actually makes it harder to get in.
Yeah, it's harder to get in at senior levels for sure, because they've spent their whole career getting to that point, and where there's not mandatory retirement, I still have a bunch of admins that are in their 70s and they love what they do. And they said, why would I sit at home and do nothing all day? I can sit at my desk and do what I love to do.
Why do I keep thinking that movie, something Prada?
Oh, The Devil Wears Prada.
The Devil Wears, right?
Yeah,
It's a great movie, right? Anyway.
It was based on a true story, right? And she was just awful, and there absolutely are awful executives out there.
Right.
No
Oh, I'm sure Sanjay would have been one had he done that.
There, Carol said 43 years. Look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I know that you're based in Canada, correct? But you work all over the world. I'm wondering if you see, even between Canada and the US, if you see cultural differences or any kind of difference in the admin population in the two countries or worldwide?
Not so much between Canada and the US. They're fairly consistent there. And I spend half the year in Canada and half the year in Florida because I'm a true Canadian. It's too cold up here. And so but I work more in the US than I do work in Canada. And I don't see a lot of cultural differences between the admin role in Canada and the US. As we move to the rest of the world, there definitely are, depending on where you go. Like, I've done a fair bit of work in the Middle East, and they are where we were in the 80s. So in that, the admin does not sit at the table and have a senior meeting, stuff like that. Australia, New Zealand, the UK, pretty close, like, pretty much all the Commonwealth countries are very, very similar. And Europe is very, same with Asia. It depends where you are, right? It's the same. I mean, you could do the same thing in Canada too, and the United States too. An admin in New York is going to be different than an admin in Memphis. It's just the volume, the responsibilities, but culturally, the role is very, very similar.
Okay. Cool.
And so where do you think, like you were talking to, that you don't know the solution of how we're going to intertwine and get this kickstarted again? And you're right, though, it'll evolve. I mean, we can't have the vacuum. Something will step in and fill its place. That's evolution. But hazard a guess, where do you think we're going?
Well, right now, what's filling the gap, strangely enough, is social media. That's where people are creating the relationships, right? So are we going to have something like that works at work? Like, there's a Facebook group called the State of the Executive Assistant. It's not mine. There are like 15,000 admins on it. And that's their group. That's their culture now. And they support each other and they work well. I think we're going to see similar-esque type things where the culture isn't necessarily just within your organization. It's going to be profession-wide, but then there'll be a subculture, as you said, inside. So if there's a bunch of admins on a social media site, they might have their own internal little site where it's, how you doing? Did you catch this last night? And it's very social, but it's also, I don't know who I'm supposed to call in HR. And I know some companies already have those. My daughter-in-law works for Manulife, and they already have that. They all show their pictures of their cats and their babies in the morning. And then every once in a while, somebody will say, hey, I learned something really cool. And that's, I think, where I see that space going. I don't know if it'll stick. We'll see.
But so what you're talking about, that sense of community, I think that's a really important lesson for any community, even within an organization, right? Not just our admins, but how do you create, we're talking about culture, we're talking about remote work. You still have to create that sense of community amongst every department, every different ERG, if that's what whatever exists in the organization.
Yeah.
I know you're, postulating on that, and I love it that it fills that void for people of a sense of team and belonging. However, it's external to the organization. So
At
if
the
I'm
moment.
part of an association of admins, I get my fix here, but does that now take me away from knowing that it's Sally's and accounting's daughter's birthday? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, does it take you away from the connectedness of the internal organization? Because that's the problem, I think, with social media. And actually, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of social media and cell phones and all that stuff, but I think most people use them stupidly. And when they overdo it, or they do it in a way that detracts, then it becomes much more difficult.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's a potential issue, that people are now, because of technology getting and work from home and technology, they're getting so divested from the organization that they actually are hurting on the connectedness piece?
No, because as Jenny even says in the chat, that's what Teams channels are. They're internal social media, right? So yeah, we've got all the stuff outside of that, but I think internally, I think it's going to grow. I think it's going to develop, and I think we'll see the outside stuff like the Facebooks and the TikToks. I think those will be less of where, or the associations where the community will be. And if the company's big enough, it'll be the internal channels that replace that. I think it's smaller, and I think
Yeah,
that's better feedback.
and more intimate. I'm
Yeah.
working with an organization now on mentoring within the organization, 8,000 people. But they're taking the concept of mentoring to a whole new level in communities, like I keep saying, where they just have small communities. You can set up any community you want.
Yeah.
You want a little community that plays hockey every Thursday night, whatever. You can establish that, and I think that's the connection that people are going to have if they're teleworking. So.
And I think that's the standing at the photocopier as I'm unjamming it. I'm saying, so did your kids play hockey? I think that's where those Teams channels are going to fill in that space.
Yeah, and it is those connections. I always say this about conferences. You need an agenda at a conference, but the formal agenda is not where the real learning goes on. It's where you're standing in the buffet line and you end up talking to someone. You do that, I do that. Oh my goodness! Or at the bar or whatever it is. It's the informal programming. But if you just put together people with no formal programming, that doesn't happen. So you kind of need to do both. I have a friend that used to say, this was a long time ago. This is in the early '90s. It used to.
I'm still stuck on you have a friend.
Well, there you go. In the early '90s, he used to say the most powerful people in the world are librarians. And I used to say, why? And he goes, because they know where to find information. And the reason I'm dating that in the '90s is because now we all have Google and we can all get that information. And so, but what I'm hearing from Rhonda is that same connectedness is the admin. They are the hub. They know that, hey, oh, you want to know you're putting together the Thursday hockey team? Well, did you talk to Billy because he plays hockey, or did you talk to Chip or whomever else? And yeah, the most important piece is to include those people in any cultural efforts that you want. Don't bypass them because, oh, I want to save the cost of a dinner plate. Or even take it a step further. You're going to do the retreat and invite the admin in a +1.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we are starting to wrap this thing up. So
I just want you to know, I apologize. I just looked down at my phone. I don't know why I did that. And Richard is having travel challenges today, so that's why they're not here.
He should have been on. He should have been on the call then. Damn it.
I know exactly.
Okay, so what about big no-nos in terms of, again, speaking the currency of admins? If you're trying to win them over and recruit them and get them to be part of the team and buy into the cultural vision, what are some of the big no-nos that we would not want to partake in?
Not having a clue what they do. And so admins are notoriously underpaid. And they're underpaid because people don't know what they do. And so I joke about this as well. I'll say, you'll go to your partner's, holiday party or summer party, and somebody will say, hi, my name is, you are, and they'll say, where do you work? And you'll give the name of the company, and they'll go, oh, what do you do there? I'm an admin. And their eyes just gloss over because they have no idea what an admin does, because we don't even have social references. Like Mary Tyler Moore was a long time ago, Mad Men was set in the 50s. The Office wasn't really a good example of, what they did. And then, you move to Suits. Well, everybody wants to be Donna, but that's not really reflective. And so we don't have any cultural references to know. Even The Devil Wears Prada was not correct, right? And so people don't know what their admin does. And so you want to get some currency, ask them, what do you do? How does what do you need me to do? What can I do to make your life easier? And really understand what they do and value that through your words and your actions and your paycheck. Because you lose your admin and boy, man, your reputation can go right down in the toilet, right? So to really make them figure out what their currency is and speak that language. Like I said, we know some people like to be publicly acknowledged. Everybody loves money. It's up there with oxygen. But don't say, like, I tell a story about Elon Musk, which is a true story. He's referenced it in people interviews and stuff like that, where at one point his admin, who had been with him for 14 years when he was running both SpaceX and Tesla, asked him for a raise. And he looked at her and said, I don't think I know what you do. So why don't you go home for 2 weeks and I'll see how well I run without you. And she went home for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, he fired her because he felt that his calendar just ran itself. He is Elon Musk, right? And there is nothing more demeaning than to be thought you don't really add value. So really know what they do, know how they make your life a different. Honestly, you do that, you're going to have an admin who is loyal till their death with you. Make them feel valued and valuable.
That is not how I thought that story was going to end. I was sure you're going to say now she owns a piece of both companies or something.
I actually heard that story. By the way,
tell
to the side, I don't know if you guys know this, but the year Elon Musk and I went to the same university. He left the year I came because he said, it wasn't big enough for the two of us. So I just, a lot of people should know that.
That's because your ego's just, as big as his. That's
Exactly.
what it is. Yeah, no. As a
And you
matter of
got
fact,
it
he
right.
doesn't have an admin now. Yeah, he doesn't have an admin now. And his logic is just ridiculous. He said, no one knows the importance of the stuff in my life except me. And I'm like, well, then you've never, ever trusted your admin.
And so here's the thing that I would say about that is there's no question that Elon Musk vibrates at a different frequency. He's got some great, amazing talents. And I've read his bio and stuff. And on the other hand, he's a bit of a freak. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just going, he's an oddball. And my take is if he was able to let go and let people take over some of that, I don't want to say insignificant stuff because it's extremely significant, but it's stuff that he can let go and someone else can do probably better than him. He could then excel better in some of the other things. And again, in my language, if he let go of some of his bottom 10, he can focus more on his top 10 and he actually moves forward. But who am I to tell Elon Musk what to do?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but we are almost out of time. And it always happens like this when we get interesting guests. So Rhonda, thank you. Where can people reach out to you or find you or if they want to?
Well, you and throw money at you.
You know what? I'm looking at my name right now and it's spelled wrong. Let me fix my rename myself. Is because I don't know why it's spelled wrong, but we'll fix that.
Well, that would be Richard who did that. So.
Oh, okay. Usually I've got Zoom, but anyway.
And we will fire him.
Scarf with an H, and I am all over the internet. If you just Google my name, you will find me. You'll also find that I'm a character in a novel, which is interesting.
By the way, I should tell them just to help you out. They did drop most charges when you Google.
Good. Yeah. With that charging. Yeah. Oh yeah, I do have a UI online. It's not me either. So there are people who have my name, some real estate agents in the States. But if you put in Rhonda Scharf, you'll find me. The name of my company is On the Right Track. You'll also find me at adminsrock.com. And I'm easy to find. Please feel free to reach out to me.
And I bet there's a book there somewhere, right?
How many?
There's 9 of them.
Yeah. I know. So yeah, reach out to Rhonda or buy one of her books, but
buy all of them and hire her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I want to thank you, first of all. I was, for those of you who don't know, we typically get on the call at about 12:45 Eastern time. And at 12:57, I was still trying to get in. It had nothing to do with the glitch this week in technology. It was totally just the glitch in my head today. I don't know what it was. But so I didn't get a chance to really get to know you. And I'd like to do that. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here. Sanjay, closing words?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say again, thank you to everyone. The truth is, Jeff wanted to spend less time with me, which is why I came on at 12:57 Eastern time. Rhonda, thank you. Appreciate your wisdom, your insights, your thoughts. Hopefully this is valuable for everyone. We will see you guys in 2 weeks, which will be August 7th.
And we have another amazing guest. This is like, we're hitting it out of the ballpark. His name is Jackson Kirchis. He is a worldwide thought leader in the area of happiness and how happiness contributes to corporate culture. So I'm very excited to have him. Young guy, just really starting his speaking career, and very knowledgeable in the area. He's done all kinds of research in the area of happiness. So excited to have him. And when will we see everybody, Sanjay?
We'll see them every other Wednesday.
We will. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks for being here. Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Bye now.